Okay, it's time to start. We call the meeting of the St. Johns County Cultural Resources Review Board to order. The April meeting, and we have a quorum. And we'll go into the meeting, the public comment. Now is the time for public comment from widely assembled people.
Or you can rally the community.
You've got a big job representing all the public.
Thank goodness for Miss O'Hara. Otherwise, we'd be preaching to an empty room.
Well, I'm here because of interest, and I won't take too much of your time. I just want to listen about agenda item number 2 and meet agenda item number 1.
Absolutely.
To get to know you, and for you to be invited to get to know Volano Beach Main Street and the surrounding A1A area that borders us. And I've got some updates on some Volano Road properties. I'm interested in making sure that the character of the town center retains its ambiance and cultural significance. And just this past month, we have had a sale of 160, 150, 176, and we haven't talked to the 165 Volano Road owner, but we will approach him and make sure that he understands what the look and feel of the property is as he moves forward with his plans. But things are popping over there, and if we don't stay on top of the curve, it's going to wipe away. Haley's Court is 150. Remember the Haley side? Let's go into rack and ruin right now, and the sign right in front is just obliterated. You can't even read what the marking is, but that's part of the history. I'm in the efforts of preserving the mosaics at the fountain, which are a reflection of the Arcadia book I wrote. But the mosaics were done by grant from DFE, and the new property owner has agreed to pay for their relocation to the Gateway Monument. So I'm trying to preserve some of the character of the town center, and that's why I'm here.
Okay, well good. Okay, so we're past public comment, and minutes of the February meeting. It wasn't a long meeting. The minutes were only one page.
I have only one comment, and that is that Ms. O'Hara's name is spelled 2 different ways throughout the report. So we should probably be consistent one way or the other.
Absolutely.
Well-
Ancient S-A-L-I-E.
I.e., okay,
Okay.
I have the proof right here.
yeah.
Okay,
there
so is there any other comments other than we'll then entertain a motion to approve the minutes as corrected?
So moved.
Motion made,
Second.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Okay. Introduction, staff introduction.
Yes, we'd like to introduce Trey Asner as our new Cultural Resource Coordinator for the county. There is no action required of the board at this time. It's more for courtesy and to get to know your new staff liaison from this point further.
Great.
Greetings, everybody. As you know, my name is Trey Asner. I am a St. Augustine local. I am one of the perhaps well-known set of triplets. I'm identical triplet, brother of Jesse and Chase. So if you say hi to me and you're wondering why I'm ignoring you, chances are it's not me. I always like to get that out there. I was born here in St. Augustine. I grew up here over in Lighthouse Park. And St. Augustine's history, St. Johns County's history, the cultural resources of this place in which we all live are very valuable to me, as it is to every single person in this room. And it's important we protect that history, especially as we continue to grow, as this becomes a home for other people. I love historic preservation. I love the idea of preserving specific buildings, sites, objects, in order to give us a sense of place. You know, feeling that we are in a place that has history instead of a place that's been wiped clean and you can't sense that this area has been occupied for hundreds of years. I'm very proud to be serving the community. I consider myself very fortunate to have this position, and I'll always remember who I serve when these kinds of decisions come up. And I thank Ms. O'Hara for coming. I'd like to talk to her later about, you know, your experience living in this community, but also what you've been working towards, what you view this community as, what you appreciate it, and how you would like to personally see it in the future. And I'd like to hear about that book that you wrote that you mentioned earlier. And it ties to that fountain. I specialize in the preservation of shell-based construction. That's what I wrote my master's thesis on. And that includes colonial buildings as well as buildings from the late 19th century that incorporate tabby. And you see shells and building materials throughout the city, throughout the county in certain areas. And that's been a very interesting vernacular material that showcases the history of St. Augustine and its seashore nature, its coastal community nature, rather. I want to let you know about my thesis so you can be the 10th or 8th person to ever read it. But if you have any questions, I'm here, and nice to be here.
Good, well,
Welcome.
great, welcome. Yeah, you sound like an ideal find for this position, so great.
Yeah, so this is his third week, and he's been learning the ropes on our internal system, reviews of all the new development applications coming in. So like you were saying before, it's like a fire hydrant coming at you, but after a few months, we sort of get the hang of it, and it's a really good addition to our group, I feel.
Right. Well, good. Anything else before we move on? Okay, so we're going to go to the update on the state grants.
Yes, and before we go there, I just wanted to say that I did have a letter there written by Trey for Ms. Christine Newman's position, just for you as the board chair to sign. So it goes to,
Okay.
I think that's it
this
there.
one. Okay.
So
sure.
it goes to the board, so we know that she's going to be on her new term.
Sure.
Thank you.
That was just in a quick aside.
What, should it be dated today's date?
Sure, yeah, it could be today's date.
Okay.
Even though I know you guys discussed that last
Yeah, right.
meeting.
Okay, sure, there you are.
Thank you. So on to our two small matching grants that we have for $50,000 apiece. The first grant was for the A1A survey starting from the north county line along A1A. In that area, Ponte Vedra, it's Ponte Vedra Boulevard, but then it transitions to A1A Coastal Highway as you go south, down and along the Guana area, down into the Volano Beach area, and along the Volano Road itself, on either side. And so to date, the consultant is GAI Consulting. They have an office in Jacksonville. They have submitted 5 Florida Master Site file forms, basically just starting that survey. It was a condition of the grant agreement and also the contract that they signed with the county to do the 5 up front. They were approved by the Division of State Historic Resources Department. And so now the next stage in that grant is finalization of their survey results. In that, I believe it was 321 minimum Florida Master Site File forms to be reviewed and submitted, along with the photo documentation of each structure. Again, that's all structures 50 years and older that meet that criteria. And so finalization of their report of that entire project area will be, I think the deadline is early May. And so that looks like, as stipulated in that contract, they're going to be on that next goal. So a draft report will be submitted to the county. I can certainly forward that to the CRRB members as well.
So the draft report is out in May, or scheduled to be completed in May.
Correct.
So that would mean that at our June meeting, would they be able to make a brief presentation at our June meeting, an overview of their findings?
Sure, I can certainly have them do that.
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Mhm.
Great.
So that wraps up that grant. If anybody has any questions on that.
And just based on, their field work has been completed at this point.
Correct. It was completed about 2 weeks ago in
Okay.
March.
And I know, Sally, you expressed interest in meeting with those people or interact?
Knowing who they were particularly.
Okay.
I can follow up at a later time, but the
Okay.
report's fine.
Okay, great.
Did that include Volano Road as well?
That's correct.
Okay.
Both
You
sides
said
of
it didn't just stop there.
Right.
Okay.
All the way out to the
The water.
Delano Pier, yeah.
And the Porpoise Point, I mean, the residential area
Peninsula.
south of Volano Road, I believe, was to be included also, because there's some,
1927 structures there.
yeah,
Yeah.
27 and several modern period homes that are quite appear to be quite significant.
Okay. I don't believe it was included south of Volano Road. That was based on what we've discussed internally.
Yeah.
But if, say there are structures that you were interested in including, that the county can look at,
Yeah.
you can certainly provide
One
those.
is under rehabilitation right now, and God knows what they're doing.
I don't know which ones you're thinking of, and I don't have any addresses, but there are two that are next, there are two properties that are next to each other that are residential, that are just extremely indicative of the modern style.
What's the cutoff period again? It's 19, what was the survey,
50 years and older.
50 and older, so
Mhm.
that would embrace the Farrell Road housing. Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, there's a whole cluster of missed opportunity there.
Yeah, so I believe that was the original agreement through the state, was that it would end at Volano Road. Not to say that there's probably other structures further south on Porpoise Point.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's called Porpoise Point, but it's parallel to Volano Road. There's streets going, I don't know which ones you're thinking of, but there's, within 2 blocks south of
Okay.
Volano Road, there's several structures that appear to be needing to be looked at.
Okay. And so I'll make sure to note that. So that completes that one, that grant review. The second one is the Cultural Resources Interpretation Program, which included replacement and new historic markers as well as panels to be installed at several county park facilities. And so in your packages, I have photos. The first one is of the old 9 Mile Road historic marker, just to give some perspective on the type of markers we're trying to replace. This one in particular, the 9 Mile Road one, was actually stolen, I believe, taken off-site. So that's why that's a replacement. We have approval through the Water Management District in that same location to place the new marker in the parking area there at 12 Mile Swamp Conservation Area. So that'll hopefully get it a little bit off the road, but again, still visible from the road. And so the second one there in color there, the 9 Mile Road, that's the replacement kind of as a sample. One of the proofs that the company that we're working with, they're called iZone Imaging. They're out of Texas. We've been working, Trey and I actually just finalized the text for both the markers as well as the panels. Total, there were 27 panels and 13 markers. A small percentage of those were replacement and the rest are new. So you have a marker there as 9 Mile Road replacement, as well as you'll see Allen Neese. That's sort of a sample of what the interpretive panels will look like. I also have a sample of what the material will look like when it's done. You can pass that around. It's high pressure laminate, which has a 10-year warranty, and so as far as fading and everything, it should be good to go for decades to come, they tell me.
This one looks like it's cast with raised type.
Correct. We attempted to do a quote for the aluminum cast, but
Yeah.
they were exceedingly expensive.
I would expect so.
So we have a $50,000 grant, and our general quotes on those came back over $100,000 for the markers only, and so that's why we went with that material.
But we try to replicate the form as best as possible. So if you notice the arch on the example of the newer sign. So
Well,
we
one
look closer.
benefit about this is more readable
Right.
because of the contrasting.
Yeah.
So we tried to stay with the same, color scheme there. The green signage. I know some of them are blue, like the state signage, but for the county signage, that's what we went with.
Are they going to be straight up or sideways or just out of curiosity?
Yeah, they'll be straight
Straight
up
up?
and
Okay.
down.
Okay.
I believe the signs, the interpretive panels might be on a slight angle, and
Yeah,
they'll have two
shows in the
posts,
picture. Okay.
support brackets.
Good deal.
And so for the timing for that one as well, we're looking at, I think it's because we finalized just last week the text for all the signage, delivery to Parks and Rec around early May. And so that'll be something that county staff works on to get installed around the county.
Good.
Any
Good.
events planned or just you're going to put them up and surprise everybody?
Yeah, they'll
No
be
parties
installed.
or anything?
No parties, no,
Okay.
nothing like that, ribbon cutting or anything, but certainly we'll be, providing an update. Once all are installed, we'll have photos of all of them installed.
And I guess there's a place that people can stop and read it without stopping in the line of traffic, or is there?
Yeah, and we did that strategically. We wanted to make sure that it was off the road, off
Yeah.
the right-of-way, because the old markers, you can tell, they have what's called a breakaway
Yeah.
post, and those are even more expensive. So we wanted to, be outside of the right-of-way and internal to the park itself.
Okay, good. Now, we have other questions the board has. Have we asked all our questions? We have opportunity for public comment on this agenda item. Yes?
Yeah, I'll chime in.
Yes.
It was 10 years ago, I had some signage on the pier and the boardwalks along A1A corridor from Fossil Graphics, and they had the laminated stuff, and they said it'd last 10 years. Well, after about 8, it started cracking under the direct sun. So what's your source supplier here?
The supplier is iZone Imagery.
iZone Imagery?
Yeah, and they're out of Temple, Texas.
And there's a 10-year guarantee on this. So if you'd gotten yours guaranteed for 10 years, you would.
Well, it started looking bad at 8 years, so I'm just telling you, but that's the direct sun.
Well, we
Yeah.
would go get a new sign if it was only
Yeah.
good for 8 years.
Yeah, and as a response, we'll try to orient the signs as much as practical outside of the sun. I know some of the sites, that may not be possible, but
No, no. And as a sister to the Nice story, we have an audio tour at the Nice House in Milano.
Good. Okay, so no other public comment? And that's a non-action item also, so we're going to go to board member reports. Board member report. I guess, I don't know if this is a report, but I mentioned to Troy, something that I keep thinking about on this, serving on this board, is how I think a lot of the work of this board is in response to things that come to us. Sometimes it's, and yet when the mission that's outlined in the sort of the charter of the board, that I guess is in the LDC, suggests that this board has an opportunity to be more activist and on its own, without something coming to it, seek out and consider a historic resource or other historic resources, or the need for more identification work. So I mean, it's just I guess I'm looking for how you see the opportunity to be more activist and in identifying and working on historic resource identification and preservation in our county versus simply things that come to this board.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying very clearly. Most of what we do seems to be reactionary instead of proactive. I like to get better understanding of the cultural resources of the county through site visits, through engaging with stakeholders, hear about the buildings that are special to them that they recognize, such as you folks bringing up these Art Moderne structures on the beach. And with recognition of what these structures are, their style, their value to the community, then see about what can we do to protect those structures, whether that's designation of a landmark status for the appropriate structures, or letting the community know that these structures are valuable to them. They just need to be told about it. There's many different ways about going about it, but yes, I agree that we need to be more proactive about identifying so we can protect, and it does say that in the LDC that the goal here is to identify and protect. So, feel free to email me of any structures, sites that you think should be on my radar, and we can communicate, not just in these meetings, but call me up. I like to see about some creating some type of social event or program where we discuss in a public setting about what we do, what our goals are, get the public more involved, so we're not just kind of in the shadows, reactionary to a few people. Let's try and reach a broader audience here.
Would you like an invite?
Certainly.
You're invited. We'll give you time, place, and date. We've resumed our Main Street meetings, and they're quite popular. And this one upcoming in April is already booked, but we're having 5:30 gatherings. It's more social, not business type, and that might be what you're looking for.
I think that we need to create some more historic districts. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean ordinances to limit the alterations of structures, because I know people are terrified of that. If there's pushback against creating a district that has ordinances, I would be interested in creating heritage overlays where an area is just recognized for its special qualities.
And that actually might be the Hastings Main Street
Mhm.
area.
Because I'm thinking about Hastings when I say that actually,
Yeah.
because I saw what happened to that landmark structure that was in ruins but preserved ruins and did contribute a lot, I felt,
Yeah.
to the streetscape of Hastings. I noticed there's structures out there that aren't listed as significant cultural resources. And, you know, Hastings has been dissolved as a city, and I like to focus in on that area at a certain point because St. Johns County is growing, St. Augustine's growing. We're going to see a lot of change out there over the next coming few years, decades. I like to preserve that part of history and allow it to grow smartly while preserving the sites that tell that story. Any questions?
What you cited, I mean, that street, Main Street Hastings has I would expect there's going to be at some point new construction along that street, and how it's done fits into the buildings that are now being renovated along that street.
Part of that area of town, when I was working for Paleo West, I reviewed those structures along Main Street and identified some as to be listed on the National Register, or as being eligible for the National
Yeah.
Register.
And are you aware that there's a significant rehab project underway now on probably the biggest commercial building along there?
I am not, but
Yeah.
it's what
It's a-
address is that, do you know?
I don't know.
That's the Great Expectations? Is that
it
the
where
one you're talking about?
The event company is going?
I think, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
It's just to the north of the bank, if you know where the bank is. Actually, I think it's, well, south of the hardware store, north of the bank.
So it's like an events place?
Well, it's being renovated. I was told by people working on the building that it was going to be, part of it was going to be for like wedding receptions and those kinds of things. But there's a upper level, and they've been doing a huge amount of work on it, repairing the windows, new roofing, a bunch of interior work, new systems. That's all I can observe when I'm there regularly, because I bicycle through there.
Well, I'm curious, are they restoring the old windows or introducing vinyl?
You know, I think I'm pretty sure they're keeping the window units,
Okay.
but they recently painted them a very dark, almost black color, the
Okay.
frame.
Well, as long as they're being preserved,
Yeah.
you know, I do believe that,
Yeah,
you know, original windows really add to the historic charm of a
Exactly.
structure, and replacing them, especially on Main Street, is like replacing a diamond with a cubic zirconium. So,
So do you think there are unknown and or unheralded or unidentified historic resources in this county that we need to pay attention to, seeking them out?
certainly, you know, I'm just one person, and I think that the list of significant resources is kind of small for the county. And I think that we need to add to that list and select what structures are eligible for landmark status from that list, and really push towards protecting these important county assets and engaging with the public more about them, especially as the county booms and more pressure is put on these resources. And
Yeah.
some of these structures may be in rural places that tell the agricultural history of the county. And I just want to make sure that they're recognized ahead of the wrecking ball, so maybe we could do something about that. And that way, we're not reactionary to a demolition permit. We already know we already identify the asset, and that way, if someone buys that property, they know what they're getting into, and maybe we can be working with them a little bit better in creating a cultural resource
Yeah.
mitigation plan to have it move or to have it rehab as a community center for that development. I mean, I've seen some interesting compromises.
Because the county doesn't have, like the city has a private citizens organization that's focused on historic preservation, right?
Certain parts of it do. You're talking about Harb?
Well, St. Augustine.
Yeah,
There's a,
Historic Architectural,
yes.
HARB. What's the R? Review Board.
The review board, yes, but isn't there a private organization, Historic St. Augustine or something, that's active? Most communities that are historic have such a thing. I guess I thought there was. Who's supporting the library, the historic library?
Yeah, the Historic Society,
Okay, yes,
yeah.
Okay,
okay.
yeah, there are lots of them and they're all kind of,
Yeah.
I don't know that there's an overriding for everything.
They all kind of work
Right.
together.
But the county doesn't have
Yeah.
this infrastructure of citizen, standing citizen that I know of,
They
maybe.
they have the
Sorry?
They have the review board, the regular review board, and Jenny used to be the
Yeah.
city person there. Jenny Wolf, now that's chair. board.
Well, I think that one way to go about protecting the county's resources, and I'm kind of repeating myself, but in a different way, I suppose, but is really just letting the people know that these resources exist, and hoping that through proper understanding and appreciation, they themselves are the pressure to certain entities which may want to destroy them. And that I'm not looking for the county's historical resources to be a monument that's stale to itself, but preserving the county's resources through rehabilitation, perhaps, allowing them to be preserved but evolve with the changes that we see in the county, if that makes sense. So, not turning everything into museum houses, but ensuring a livable community that recognizes its historical past.
Good. Okay, so other member reports, if we don't, staff report, anything more, staff reporting?
We have no reports to add at this time.
Okay, well, just before we adjourn, I just want to correct, I may have misspoken on the style of these two homes that I was thinking of. I believe they're more mid-century modern or modernist rather than modern. So I think they're of the,
They're old.
Well,
so I didn't want someone to,
Pre-73.
I didn't want someone to go out and try to hunt down a modern versus a modernist mid-century.
and I understood what you meant, because mid-century, it's more of a period designation than it is a style.
Yes,
And
yeah.
you do see Art Moderne style structures that were built during the mid-century time period. But I'm curious to see what these structures look like. And I think that we do need to recognize our more recent past. And that includes mid-century architecture. I don't want mid-century architecture to go the same way as Victorian architecture did in the mid-century era.
Okay.
Can I bring up one more point? The Hastings School, because the old
Yes.
Hastings School, there was a report that came out about that, and did we ever hear the final results of that report? Does anybody remember? We were holding off for some reason.
Yes, I don't think we've got, I'm not exactly sure. I guess maybe
Yeah.
we need to ask staff to, that's a really good question, because we're talking about a structure that this board recommended its nomination on the county's as a landmark nomination. And I think it got to the BCC, and then there was a huge question on the issue of if it's a county-owned building and becomes an actual designated landmark, what is the county facing on the preservation of that building? And this board, or the board at that time, went and did a tour of the building, and following that, we started hearing some indication, but not a full study of what the cost would be to preserve and have a reuse for that building. I think the library is still operating part of it, or isn't it?
And I think it is, but I think they're building a new one. I think the plan is to build a new library in that area, if I'm correct. It seems like I saw that in the paper.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
That's not the one going on onto Main Street, is it? That's a
I'm not
community
sure.
center.
Yeah, I'm not
Okay.
sure of that.
That'd be good. I think
Yeah,
that
I would just hate to see that building
Yes.
because it's not, they're building a new one. They just kind of let it fall apart
that
more.
would be, if we could,
Yeah.
could we have that report back on the Hastings High School at the next meeting?
Yes.
Its status, whether the county has completed the survey or the analysis of the cost to repair and secure that building, because I think it was basic securing of it that was even thought to be, the county was in a quandary about that, I believe. I'm not sure where that went.
I'd be curious to see that report too.
It's, have you been inside it?
I've never been inside it. This was actually, the meeting regarding that structure was the last meeting that I went to,
Okay,
because I met most of you. I remember you.
okay.
I remember you.
Uh-oh.
All good things. I think I was like, that's a very nice shirt. You tend to wear very nice shirts.
There-
But yes, I've never seen the inside of that structure. I would like a tour if that's possible.
Well, yes, the county, I mean, your county staff.
Yeah, I'm asking you.
The county can get you into it, but it's got a beautiful auditorium space, very nice, really nice, with a stage of proscenium and I believe 2 levels of seating and balcony seating. It was a room, it was obviously being used for, basketball, but also for performances in theaters. And the building dates back to the 20s or
I
earlier.
don't remember. Yeah,
But
it's
at a
beautiful.
time when there was a lot of attention in high school to dramatic productions and concerts and all that.
It was also built by a noted St. Johns County architect. His name escapes me.
Yeah.
And I think that as the Hastings area grows into the future, we'd be happy, from my personal opinion, if we kept that asset preserved, even if we just maintain the roof of it and board it up until we have the funds to actively restore it. I think hold on to it until we can get some restoration grants, because it's a great public space.
Yeah, and this community's starving for performance spaces. Anything that involves a large gathering, where there's, so.
Yeah, we'll certainly be on the lookout for that and maybe follow up with the library system or, whomever is the contact for maintenance of that
Yeah.
structure within the county.
I think the big thing was the dollar sign. It was, there was some, I guess it's got asbestos in it, but there was water infiltration in part of the building that
Right,
was
I think that was the
pretty
big thing.
serious, but
Yeah.
not that great
Auditorium.
auditorium space didn't seem to be damaged interior-wise in any way. It was a beautiful space.
I think that the National Park Service too updated um, what type of mitigation you need for asbestos, and now I think they say you can just paint over it.
Really?
Really,
Oh, man.
I don't know.
Good.
depending,
Maybe.
Kick the can down the road.
not making any promises here, but
Take on liability.
it's not as scary as, unless the NPS has really lost it, but it's not as much of a problem as it used to be in terms of rehabilitating spaces that have asbestos in it for public use. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Containment,
Yes, containment through encapsulating it
yes,
in
yes,
paint.
yes. Not just painting over it.
Yeah, not just paint, but forming a protective, stable layer.
Okay.
And if I do get the opportunity to go and check it out at some point, of course, members of the board here are welcome because you have worked with the structure before and could give commentary throughout the tour and your experiences and your thoughts.
That would be good. Let the board know. I think it has to be publicly noticed, but that would be great. And thank you for bringing it up again. Yes.
One other thing, the fact that Sally mentioned so many of those buildings are being purchased out in Volano, that would be another thing I think we should act on pretty quickly before they're all demolished, if nothing else. Yeah.
Property appraisers' sales records are pretty up to date and current. You might want to check that periodically and see what's happening. And
Yeah.
it would be a designated district, I'm sure, Hastings or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of change going on the beach, and I like to talk to you, the group that you're representing here tonight. I would entertain, that invitation, and hear you folks out, and hear more about the Main Street program, because this is only day 11 for me, and I've looked at the Main Street program, but I'm not really sure, how the documents that I've seen are. I like to get just some real contemporary idea of what's going on.
We'll get you educated. We have a historic preservation Main Street conference in June,
Okay.
tail into June in DeLand, so it's a day trip type activity. So there'll be a lot of opportunities then to get to know about Main Street and the linkages with historic preservation and economic development.
Okay. I don't have any cards right now, but
Yeah, I got mine here.
okay, I'll email you,
Okay.
and then you have my contact.
Okay, so no other business? I guess we're adjourned.
Okay.
Oh, the next meeting